We're going to do a talk on collaborative workflow for WordPress development. So Ben contacted me out of the blue year and a half, roughly. He emailed me and said, "G'day, I live near you, let's catch up for coffee," and then we just kept in touch ever since and done a few projects together. And we're going to run through basically our way of working together at the moment. We don't work in the same building, so we're obviously working
remotely,
that's the word. I'm nervous. A discussion of the development tools and processes utilised in the remote collaboration of a WordPress website. We took about 15 minutes to come up with that.
Yeah.
So it's basically just all the stuff we use to make the website work. And we've got our own hashtag, so if you want to trend it, my wife's watching it, so that'll be fun for her. All right, here we go. So briefly run over who we are, but Ben will go into more detail about himself.
Hi everyone, thank you to the organisers for having us. My name's Ben Pearson, I'm a freelance WordPress developer. I've been working with WordPress since about 2009, so haven't been that long, but I've been building websites for a fair bit longer. Based out in the Dandenong Ranges, sort of southeast of Melbourne, and the thing I love most about my job is receiving a great design and coding that up into a responsive site.
My name's Joel. I live in Kilsyth, which is just down the road from Ben, out in the east. I've been freelancing for about 2 years now. Before that, I worked in print for 9 years, long years. And I basically do more front-end stuff, but trying to teach myself with every project, new tricks and techniques, and advance my skills. That's it. All right, so we've got a big disclaimer. It's not a how-to, it's a we-do. So this isn't the best way of doing things, this is just how we figured out how to do it. And I just stole Ben's slide.
That's right. So basically we're going to talk about how we build some sort of medium-sized client sites together. We're able to collaborate, work on the same thing at the same time without stepping on each other's toes too much. And just the flow of information between us and a staging server, basically just all the processes and tools that we use to do that. So basically we're hoping that we sort of show how we did it, it's the way we worked out how to do it, and hopefully at the end, rather than right in the middle and destroy our presentation, you'll say, here's a better way of doing it, and we can all learn from that sort of situation. We're going to do, sorry, go on, Joel. Is there online or? So just quickly, there's sort of 3 stages to this. First one is, we're just going to explain sort of how it works when it's all working, and the second one is how to set that up, and then the third one is hopefully suggestions from everyone. Is this me or you?
That's you.
Yep, cool. So a few assumptions that we've made just based on the way we work that sort of carry through this presentation. First one is that you have, so this is based around client work sort of thing, so hopefully that applies to a majority. So the first one is, assumption is you have a WordPress starter theme and a WordPress sort of starter install. So it's not just a theme, it's got all your favourite settings for the database, for your favourite plugins, they're all installed, ready to roll. And you can just make a copy of that, and that's like your launching pad for the next project. Second assumption is that the starter theme is not already on Git, so we're going to sort of cover that stuff a bit, very sort of high level. That we're going to be editing a parent theme, not a child theme, though it doesn't make a huge difference. It's just the assumption that we've sort of run with. That's using so we've got starter themes sort of based on things like underscores, Canvas, in Joel's case, yeah. That you've got Git. We assume that you've got Git working on your development machine. This is not really going to get deep into Git. It's very high level because we don't have a lot of time, and that you've sort of got a few of the premium sort of tools, plugins that are required to do this. Okay, the last one's a little bit of a technical one, but we'll get into this. But there's a number of ways you can do version control on WordPress, and I'd like to start by saying a huge thanks to Amelia for teaching me via her videos on ameliabriscoe.com. They're on there at the moment, yep. Yes. Most of what I know about Git. She's Google WordPress Git tutorials #1. Yep, there you go. She's got a great video series. There's on introduction, and it's a bit different to the way we're doing things here, but probably better, which doesn't just use the WP content folder, it's sort of does the whole thing. But that's the assumption we're running with this presentation. But we'll get into that.
All right, so these are the tools that we've settled on using. So we're doing CSS pre-processing, using CodeKit, Git, source tree. So I'll just skip through all these. So SAS is our pre-processing language of choice. I'm using CodeKit. Ben's using Prepros. So it's basically up to you which one you prefer using. We're using Git. We're both using source tree. You can use command line or any other bunch of other tools you can use out there for that kind of stuff. We're using Beanstalk, which is a private private repo for Git hosting, and also does deployment via a bunch of different methods, SFTP. There's a bunch of them. We're using WP Migrate DB Pro to keep our databases in sync. And we'll go through that in more detail because that's probably one of the most important parts of the whole thing. And also Backup Buddy a little bit just to get us kicked off.
Can you just do that one again?
Yeah.
Just thought it might be a good idea to just get a vibe of where people are at with these tools, like just how many of you are already using these sorts of things so we can sort of get a feel for it. So for instance, SAS. Is anyone here using SAS already? Yep. And you're mostly using CodeKit to compile that SAS. Any others? Sorry. Grunt. Yep. Cool. And Git. How many people here are using Git for version control? Yep. And command line hands. GUI hands. And what do you use for GUIs? Shout them out. Tower. GitHub. Yep. Cool. So we've just chosen to use source tree. That's something sort of we came across that worked for us, but there's a million different ways you can skin that one. And Git repos, as Joel said, there's a bunch of them. Bitbucket, GitHub, obviously, and Backup Buddy. Who's using Backup Buddy, Import Buddy on a regular basis? So if you don't know, that's an awesome tool for just cloning a site or migrating a site to a new domain name. It's incredibly easy to use and just takes so much heartache out of all that stuff.
All right, so we're going to run through some scenarios now. Do you want to flick over the flowchart?
Cool.
So Ben has beautifully
Hopefully you can read that.
In an image. Is that the one?
Yeah. So this is the internals of a nuclear reactor.
Or
and here's
something else.
Yeah. So basically, this is the way it sort of works, and really looking forward to feedback on this. We have two devs, and we have our staging environment, and we have a remote Git repository. Sorry, can you see I'm getting in the way there? So when we were doing this, we had four major things we need to consider with a WordPress install that needed syncing and version control and whatnot. First is the core, which is obvious. There's the database. We chose to use the WP content folder. Within that WP content folder is the uploads folder, which contains all your media files and all that sort of thing that's uploaded as the content. So in the WP content folder is also your theme, obviously, and your plugins. So basically what we've set up is, where to start? So the database, the most recent version of the database, the version of the database that you want to edit is the staging one. It's the one you have in a remote position. And then you both pull down via this tool called WP Migrate DB Pro. Say that. You just pull down the database as required, as you would, pulling down the latest version from a repository of any sort. The uploads, this is just released an add-on that allows you to do the same for the media files. So you can get an add-on that will just allow you to pull or push the media files that have been uploaded through the media library on WordPress. So you can pull them down. Working on the theme, you're pushing and pulling with your repository, and then you're pushing that via Beanstalk, or if you're using a managed host, you don't have to do that. You're pushing that, there's theme changes or whatever, straight to your, via FTP, automatically, hopefully, to your staging environment. So that's the general flow of information, but we'll get into that in more detail. Does that make any sense? Connor, a little bit?
Just for anyone who's not aware, staging is kind of like a testing area. So it's not the live site. You could use this on the live site if you were brave, but it's like a play area. And then once you've got everything sorted out, you then push that live. So we're not actually going to cover that. It's just we're talking about the staging.
It's me or?
It's you.
Yeah. So as you come to realise, there is a fair bit of overhead with this sort of thing. So it suits sort of medium, larger projects, small projects that you can pump out yourself. You're better off doing that. But so it does require that you've got to kind of sync yourself with the repo and pull down the database and the media files as required a few times a day, or as you communicate the necessity for. Looking forward to feedback on this stuff.
So what Ben and I would do is, we work independently. I do some theme stuff, he might do some other stuff, and then I'll just let him know that I've done some changes, and he'll either pull the database or check Git, that kind of stuff. So still communication required. All right, so another scenario is working on your theme, so your CSS files, your Sass, JavaScript, all that kind of stuff. So you work independently, do your local changes. Those would then come into your Git repo to be pushed up. So you push those up to your staging server, and then your changes tend to be pulled down by the other dev, as well as your... No, that's it. That's all I have.
So these are just sort of the daily workflow scenarios that we're going through here. So adding content, whether it be I'm adding posts to the blog, content for a client, or the client themselves working on that staging environment before launch to add their own content. That all needs to be done on the staging site. So we never sort of added text, images, anything like that locally and then pushed it, because it's not part of the repo, it's excluded from the repository. So it's all done directly on the staging site. And then we'd pull it down as required for our development using this tool, WP Migrate DB Pro.
All right, plugins. So every now and then there's some updates to plugins, especially advanced custom fields. There's one every day. So the process for installing plugins is to install it locally. So someone will see the need for a particular plugin, install it locally, then push it up to the Git repo. The configuration is done on your staging site, so that's where the database is the master copy. So you do all your configuration on the staging site, and then both devs would then pull down the database when you're ready to.
So unlike Amelia's version of this, core updates are required to be done everywhere. So I'll need to update, Joel will need to update, and the staging will need to update, or we've got Gary's alternative.
That was quick. All right, so this is the setup. So stage one.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just going to talk. Can we just switch back to the PDF for a second? Sorry, dude. So this is how we set it up to get to that point where we're sort of talking to each other. So firstly, we're just going to talk about how this one's set up. Just by itself, no staging, no other devs yet. Okay, so you got your starter, theme, and WordPress install. This is how we work anyway. I'm sure everyone does it a bit differently. We use Backup Buddy to take a clone of that and recreate that locally. These are the detailed steps, more high-level detailed steps of how that's done. Would you like me to go through this stuff, or just skim over it? How are we looking? No feedback there. All right. So basically, you clone the starter theme using Backup Buddy, Import Buddy, and your local server setup. Then we'll sort of rename the installs to customize it to the project's requirements. Then we'll set up our CSS Sass compiler, sort of tell it where it is, where your new install is, so that it's sitting in the background compiling your Sass for you. Log into the site and sort of make those fundamental changes to site names and usernames and things like that. So we have now a clone of our starter theme, slightly customized to the project, all local to one dev.
Stage two. All right. So Dev 1 will then go, okay, everything's cool. I'm going to make another copy of this cloned site and push that, move that up to the staging server using Backup Buddy. So you just run the backup buddy process. You've got your domain set up and your staging environment on your host of choice. Then you upload your backup and import buddy files, and then run import buddy on your staging domain, staging server. So that involves extracting the files and then writing to the database.
Cool. So we have two WordPress installs, local one and a remote one. Now we need to get Git involved. This we can definitely use some feedback on. Maybe Amelia will help us. Okay, so this is how we were doing it. We would so it's just WP content folder that we're doing version control on. So we would copy the contents of the WP content folder in dev1's local scenario to the desktop just to make a copy of it. Delete all files within that WP content folder. Create a new repo on Beanstalk, GitHub, Bitbucket, whatever. Clone that empty repo down to the WP content folder, the empty WP content folder. And then add the files back in. So then Git will go, oh, I've got all these new files. And then commit those files. With that in there, with your git ignore, we'll ignore the uploads folder within the WP content folder. So it's ignoring all the media files that are in there. We don't want to version control those. Some people might. And then we'll make that initial commit that has, here's our starter scenario for a WP content folder. So that is pushed up to our Git Beanstalk, which is our Git repo in this scenario, but not yet deployed to staging. So it's just in the repo. So we've got a snapshot of the start of our WP content folder in a local repo and a remote repo.
Alright, so everything's sort of in there, down here, and up there.
Yep. Great diagram.
Clear out. Alright. Stage 4. Okay, so now we're going to push our files from our WP content folder up to the staging server using Git. Okay, so you set up your FTP deployment or your repo. So that can be FTP or SFTP, or there's a few other options with Beanstalk, whatever works for you. Then you make a manual deployment. So the first deployment you do from your Git repo needs to be a manual one. So it's basically just to click a button and then it'll push it up, assuming everything's configured properly. So that'll overwrite everything that's in the current WP content folder on the staging site. So now everything should be in sync with the staging site and dev1's install. Oop. Oh no, it's all right.
Okay, so now we're getting dev2 involved.
That's usually me.
Not usually. So dev2 will run backup buddy on the staging. So I'll just jump back to that mistake. So this guy or gal takes a backup buddy of this whole bit here, brings it home and runs import buddy, creates it locally. So we've got a copy of that, but we don't have a repository when we use backup buddy. We need to hook Git into that. Let's jump back to the slides for a bit. So this is kind of the steps for backup buddy. So you create a local database, empty local database and folder, run import buddy with the backup that you've taken. Now we get Git involved on dev2's environment. So we delete the contents of the WP content folder, clone the repo from Beanstalk to the WP content folder. So basically, we're taking, instead of just the files from there, so when we do backup, we just got the files there. Now we're taking the repo as well, so we've taken the version control down there as well. So then you just configure your SAS compiler. In our scenario, we're using different platforms, so we had some considerations of, I use a thing called Prepros. Joel was using CodeKit. CodeKit would save the config file into your theme folder, which would sort of throw out my compiler, so we sort of had to do some ignoring of those files for that to work. But on the whole, SAS and Git were working friendly. Sorry, man?
Yes, question. So at this stage, does the site work locally? Because the URL's not be different.
So that's the beauty of backup buddy and import buddy. Yeah, it does all that stuff for you, man. You just you take a backup, and then you to download a thing called Import Buddy, which is this little tool that's customized to that particular install, and then you chuck them in a folder locally, and you've got to set up an empty database, and then you just run Import Buddy with that backup buddy in the same, that zip in the same folder, and it just goes through and says, you know, what do you want to call it, what do you want, domain name do you want to use, it goes through and changes all of the paths in your database for you, and you're good to go, basically, yeah. Yeah, it's a really, really good tool. So that's about the extent of it.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, let's dance.